Okay. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I have been informed about the works of our morning session in the sense that some of our colleagues from two specific countries were extremely creative in linking some topics to artificial intelligence. May I ask that in the afternoon session they do not continue too much with this. I fully understand all the sensitivities, and we all, without any exception, understand the sensitivities, but please let us have the artificial intelligence reports go through the way they should, because I've seen in the messaging there were a number of colleagues who wanted to make a point of order, so I'm a little bit preempting to that. And asking all of our colleagues to really stay at the issues at hand, which includes, by the way, this part of the Standing Committee, by which I have the extremely great pleasure to welcome Minister Miltiadis Varvitsiotis. Miltiadis, welcome again to our committee. Thanks for making some time available to join us again, because last month we heard your statement. We took a number of questions, but we were not able to finish this due to time constraints. So I'm very happy that you were able to be with us again, which is a little bit logic given the big heart you have for PACE. And I would like to start with, if you wish, to give you the floor again, if you wish to give us an additional message from your side. If you wish, Mr. Minister, you have the floor, Miltiadis. Mike Miltiadis, you have to put your mic on.
Sure. Do you hear me now?
Yeah, good.
Okay. Well, thank you, Rick, once again. Dear members of the Standing Committee, I think it's quite unusual that for the fourth time during presidency, the chairman of the Council of Ministers of the Committee of Ministers is addressing addressing the Standing Committee. But as you already know, I really treasure and I appreciate the work being done at the PACE. So I want also to highlight the importance of PACE through my intervention. And I think that it's going to be the last time that we all meet until, well, we all meet virtually because it hasn't been able that we meet in person. Well, for you, Rick, and for the Secretary General and the President of the European Court of Human Rights and the Commissioner for Human Rights, we are expecting you to come and visit us on November 4th in Athens in order to have the ministerial meeting and also to commemorate the 70th anniversary of the European Convention of Human Rights. Let me say, before starting my intervention that has to do with the wrap-up of what has been accomplished so far during our chairmanship, to express my deep regret for the appalling terrorist attack that took place in France a few days ago. And I think that this terrorist attack, as all the evidence shows that it is, touches against the very heart of our values in the Council of Europe. And I think that we should express our contempt to this act with the strongest possible terms. Additionally, I would like also to highlight the statement by the Secretary General and by the Chair of the Political Affairs Committee of PACE on the opening of the Varosha seafront by the occupational forces in Cyprus. Also, these actions should be not tolerated because they ran contrary to the UN resolutions of Cyprus and came as another click on the chain in a series of provocative acts by Turkey, leading to a dangerous escalation in the region. a new NAVTEX that was issued yesterday by the Turkish authorities, prolonging the exploratory activities of the research vessel Oruç Reis, came to escalate one more the tension in our region and further isolates the possibility of a renewal of talks. And its location is at a distance closer than 12 nautical miles from the Greek island of Castellorizo, violating, therefore, our sovereign rights. I would like also to highlight the fact that yesterday we had a web event organized by the by the Secretary General for Family Policy and Gender Equality of the Ministry of Labour, in cooperation with our chairmanship in the Council of Europe. And this event, that we highlighted the importance of gender equality, was highlighted by the presence of the message of and the intervention of our President of the Republic, Mrs. Katerina Sakeleropoulou, and the message from our Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis, that together with me had the privilege to present the opening remarks and also to highlight the importance that the Greek chairmanship gives to the issue. Well, coming to the end of this 6 months period, I would like to say that it was very weird for us, and I think it was very weird for everybody to have a new chairmanship, and actually to start with a new chairmanship and conclude with a new chairmanship, since I don't think that many events took place outside of the internet. I think that we did a great job by introducing a new way of discussion, and this was titled In Discussion With. It was a series of interesting discussions with people who voiced their views and concerns, sometimes almost against governmental policies during this pandemic. And we also give an extra effort to engage the younger generation, the Generation E, in our web series. Also, we try to put in line with what has been the tradition of the Council of Europe, that we are not talking about only politics, but we also try to bring culture in our discussion. The fact that we have organized a series of events in several monumental areas of Greece with the Greek orchestra, with the Athens Orchestra, together with the event that we organized last June in Athens, last July in Athens, for the opening of our chairmanship with the presence of the President of the Republic. Finally, I think that it has come to an end the discussion in the two major issues that we have put in place as main goals for our chairmanship. The one is to conclude on the Athens Declaration, which is going to be the roadmap for the future on how to deal in times of a pandemic, in times of crisis, and how to respect the rule of law, democracy, and human rights. And the other issue that we inherited from the French presidency, the French chairmanship, and this has to do with the Observatory of the History. I think that in the Committee of Ministers, the discussions have been come to almost a conclusion. I hope that in the next few weeks we are going to present to you, but also to present to the General Secretary, the decision on these two matters. And I'm very pleased that we have moved forward in these very interesting matters in this difficult period. Finally, I would like to say, and I have to express My deepest regrets for the fact that we haven't been able to visit Strasbourg during the last months. Unfortunately, all the epidemiological data shows that there is a new wave in Europe hitting Europe. Actually, there is going to be an extraordinary European Council next week on the matter. And I think that we have to deal with the fact that some of our meetings will continue for a longer period than originally predicted, being held in a televised form. I am planning to come to Strasbourg for the Passover of the chairmanship to my German colleague, to Michael Roth, who is going to take the lead from our chairmanship, and we hope that we can all meet, at least with the heads of the various organizations of the Council of Europe and the members of the acting members of the Council of Ministers, the permanent representatives, sometime mid-November. And I hope that we can make it in Strasbourg, and we will have the possibility to exchange views and ideas and make an official presentation of what has been accomplished. But what I have already stated, it's coming as an answer also to a question that I received in our last meeting from our British colleague, who asked what you have succeeded during your chairmanship. And I think this and other issues that I can also bring into detailed presentation for you are the major successes of our chairmanship. Thank you, Rick, and I'm waiting for your questions.
Thank you very much, Miltiadis. Indeed, troubling times. Pandemic is unfortunately, as you rightfully mentioned. Next week there will be an extraordinary European Council on the matter. We see it in all of our countries, and it's a little bit sad to see that we cannot meet each other physically, as they call it, because that obviously has a completely different dynamic than having to work in a remote fashion, if I may say so. Now, this having said, I mean, the moment you're able to come to Strasbourg, whenever it is, we'll make up for it. So be sure that we'll make sure that, well, we'll compensate in a proper way, if you allow me to say so. Having said this, I think that the two elements that you mentioned, the Athens Declaration and the Observatory of History, even if they are let's say, put into practice through remote meetings and the Committee of Ministers who do meet. But they are very important because the roadmap, the principles, some standard setting in terms of how do you manage a pandemic from the angle of our fundamental values is extremely important, because unfortunately enough, we need to take into account that this might not be the only time that we will have to go through this very difficult and painful situation. So it is very important, and I hope that the Committee of Ministers and the ministers themselves will be able to have the result on the table. I'm pretty sure of that at the Athens meeting. I understood from my people that you're expecting us physically, at least the Secretary General and the judge, the chair of the court, and myself. Well, as I said before, if we need to come by boat, by plane, by car, by bus, by bicycle, I don't know, provided it is possible, we will be there, because we know your famous hospitality, which is like the basic, this is the heart of Greek society, and so we are very sad that we're not able to experience that fully. As far as the Observatory of History is concerned, I do hope that you're able to finish that work. I don't know whether it's possible, but it is indeed will be a joint result from the French and the Greek presidency, and that is extremely important. As far as I am concerned, as president. In the morning, I told the colleagues around the remote table that for some part of our activity, 2020 is a bit of lost year. It's not even a bit of lost year. It is a lost year because we were not able to meet. And as you know, one of the most important elements of our functioning is the interparliamentary meeting, is going in the field, is being in those countries, looking at issues in person. So unfortunately, this has been an element that we did not have on board. On the other hand, we were able, thanks also to the efforts of the Committee of Ministers and of the Secretary General, and obviously our own staff and all of our members of the Parliamentary Assembly, to accomplish the work that we need to accomplish. Even inventing a little bit new working methods, such as reaching out to national parliaments, such as having this standing committee in what we call an enlarged format, where all members of parliament, if they wish to do so, indeed can be board. I thank you upfront already very much for being full-time on board. I might even consider organizing another standing committee before the handover, in question to give you a fifth opportunity. We'll have a call about that. We'll see if that will be appropriate or not. But anyway, thank you extremely. I mean, really warm-hearted thanks for your presidency, and I know how much you value pace, and you've shown that. You've shown that because, I mean, at any occasion that was possible, you were on board with the Parliamentary Assembly. Now, let me come to the colleagues who wish to have some questions to you. I will take them 3 by 3, which is the classical way of doing. In principle, colleagues, you have 1 minute to put a question to the minister. Obviously, the minister has got no time constraints, although we always ask him to be not too long, which you are never, so that's okay. So why don't we head off with our 3 first colleagues wanting to put a question to you. In order, they are Mr. Yildiz, Mr. Zingeris, and Mr. Pojcek. So we will start off with Mr. Yildiz. Mr. Yildiz, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Minister, in the last session and now, we put resumption of Oruç Reis activities within 15 miles, just 15 miles from Turkish shores, as a pretext not to start negotiations between the two countries. It reminds me the so-called Sevilla map, because it is the same approach, according to which Turkey, with its 1,800 kilometers coastline in the Eastern Mediterranean, will have less continental shelf than the island of Mes, which is only 10 square kilometers, 5 to 2 kilometers. So may I ask you in that case, that does Greece acknowledge this Sevilla map? Does it represent the Greek claims regarding the maritime borders? If it not, can you denounce this Sevilla map publicly now, as United States and the EU did? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yildiz. We now go to Mr. Zingeris. Mr. Zingeris, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. It's good to see you, Minister. Thank you for all your contribution to Parliamentary Assembly during years and years. So my question is specifically, of course, related to the events in Belarus. I'm facing every week Madame Sikhanovskaya, and I see that even Nobel Prize winner Madame Alexeyevich left the country when ambassadors were defending her at her flat. And Natalia Lebetka, one of the leader of opposition, is arrested just 2 days ago. And thank you for a very good statement just done by you, by Mr. Dems and Secretary General. But what is the next steps? How we will protect Belarusian civil society? One. Second, amendments to Russian constitution means not implementing probably the decisions of human rights courts, well, the law, internal law was declared upper to the international law. In some cases, now they have right to reject the decisions of human rights court. And Navalny case too, European Union took a very clear decision about using poison against Mr. Navalny. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then we go to Mr. Polčák. Mr. Polčák, you have the floor.
Thank you, President. I would like to express my gratitude to the government of Greece to put you, Miltiadis, our colleague, somebody who knows our organization, and to put you during presidency, Greek presidency, as somebody who is speaking and talking with us. This is very, very, very good proof of cooperation. I feel very sorry that these 6 months we could not meet in person, but I hope that in the future we will do it many times. Very quick question about the security of European borders on the Mediterranean Sea. If you could bring us some testimony how this is going right now. Thank you.
Thank you. We now go to Mr. Minister. Miltiadis, you have the floor.
Well, thank you. It is a great pleasure also to see Emmanuel and Alexander, with whom we have worked together for many years. Well, the first thing I would like to answer to Ahmed Yildiz is the fact that if you believe that you have and you deserve a much bigger continental self, then in order to achieve that, or an exclusive economic zone, in order to achieve that, you have to come to the table of negotiation with your neighbors and eliminate it. By exercising rights, by the use of military force, you cannot produce any recognized international result, and the only thing that you provoke is security and stability in the region. If Turkey really believes that it deserves a much greater than what Greece believes exclusive economic zone in the Mediterranean, the only way to move forward is through negotiation and revert the issue to the International Court of Justice. The unilateral use of exploratory vessels and accompanied by half of the Turkish fleet in this area, the only thing that makes is provokes the stability, provokes the response of Greece, and provokes also the deterioration between the European Union and Turkey relationship, as it has been described in all the recent European Council decisions. So, if we have a problem, we revert it to the court and we not go back in the 18th century way of doing things when international law didn't exist, and then we used arms in order to shorten out our bilateral disputes. And this is the spirit of this organization, this is the spirit of the United Nations, and this is the spirit also of European Union. And this is the modern and European way of dealing with this, with the disputes. For the issue of, that Emmanuel has brought up, actually the three issues that he has brought up, on the issue of Belarus, I think I should revert to our trilogue statement issued on October 13th. It was our second trilogue statement that the Council of Ministers, the Parliamentary Assembly and the Secretary General, together we expressed our concern. And actually, we also said that we are ready to contribute with our experience and expertise, the Council of Europe, to play a role in the preparation of the constitutional long-awaited reform, as well to the other reforms, the electoral reforms, and to the inclusion of the opposition to the political debate in Belarus. We follow the matter with great concern, and actually I was among the ministers in the European Council that we have prepared and agreed on the sanctions on Belarus. On the Navalny case, I think first we have to express our human concern and express our wishes for a fully and complete recovery. The cases, it is essential for us to find the truth of what really happened. In the two cases brought by Mr. Navalny to the European Court of Human Rights, the court strongly criticized his unlawful arrest, which it found pursued an ulterior purpose, namely to suppress that political pluralism which forms part of effective political democracy governed by the rule of law. The Committee of Ministers examined his cases at its human rights meetings last September, where it called on the authorities to take action as a matter of urgency with a view to ensuring that the applicant is able, without hindrance, to exercise his rights to freedom of peaceful assembly and freedom of expression. And in the issue of the decisions made by the Court of Human Rights, I think, me personally, you as members of PACE, all together, we urge our governments to fully comply with the decisions of the Court of Human Rights. Actually, in Greece, we have made a lot of effort in order to make steps towards that end. And I hope that by the end of this year, we are going to make our record of compliance much better than it is now. Well, to Alexander about security of the borders. Probably we are talking about security of the borders vis-a-vis migration, because security of the borders, it's another issue that actually it's out of the sphere of our organization. And it has to do also with the issues tackled already by me in various occasions regarding the unilateral actions taken by Turkey that jeopardize security in the region. In terms of security of the borders, in terms of migration, I would like to tell you that since last February, when we have seen in Eastern Mediterranean and actually in the Evros region, in our confinement, in our borderline with Turkey, we have seen the instrumentalization of more than 20,000 refugees that they were trying to illegally trespass our borders, and we have seen the actions taken by the government, the Greek government, that they were supported by the European Council and all European institutions at the moment in order to block this utilization and weaponization of these poor people by the Turkish government. We have seen a slowing of the inflow of people arriving in our borders, either at sea or at the land borders. This was due to the 2-3 facts. The first is that we have actually put together a more firm policy in combating smuggling and controlling our border. The second is that we have closed our borders due to the fact of the COVID-19, and this is something that it has applied, it had a universal application. And the third thing is that we have intensified our patrols in the Aegean Sea. I would like to say that also there is a reluctancy on behalf of the Turkish authority to come and pick up people that may be in danger at the at the Turkish territorial waters when they are called by the relevant Greek authorities. And 2 days ago, we have seen a new fact of increasing tension in the area where the Turkish Ministry of Transport actually acclaimed half of the Aegean Sea that is already controlled as a search and rescue area by the Greek authorities to be covered by the Turkish authorities as well. This may lead to difficulties in the search and rescue operations and may end, among other things, in the death of people who are going to be left alone in the area that the Turkish authorities have claimed that it is ours. So I think that it's very important, and what we have always fought for as a basic value, first of all, the savor of any human life at sea is our first priority. And then comes all the issue of security and safety.
Thank you, Miltiadis. Now we go to our next three colleagues with a question. We had three men, so obviously I will have three ladies now. In order, it will be Madam Schouw, Madam Steenen, and Dame Cheryl. So first in my list is Madam Schouw. You have the floor.
Hello, Minister, and good to see you. And also thank you for governing the presidency. I'm really sorry that it was not possible to come to Greece. What I want to ask you is that if you could share some of your experience, except from COVID-19, of course, because that's a special situation for all of us, but share your experience during this presidency in contact with member states that we have difficulties. And also, I ask this question to you because it's a point, I think, that we can also secure continuity to work in the presidency, and also now when you are delivering the presidency to Germany. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Schouw. On my list, Madam Steenen. I think, Miltiadis, if your mic is... Okay, it's closed. So we now have Madam Steenen. Petra, you've got the floor.
Yes, hello everybody in Strasbourg. Hello, Mr. Minister. I have a few questions related to the COVID-19 reports we had last week. I was the rapporteur for the Equality and Non-Discrimination Committee on upholding human rights in times of crisis. And our finding was very clear. We need an inclusive approach by all of our governments to really protect the human rights of the people who are not at the decision-making tables, meaning young people, women, people with disabilities, migrants, Roma, and what have you. So the second observation was that there is a very large increase of violence against women, and Madam Mijatovic, in her speech to the Standing Committee, was very clear that we need protection and ratification of the Istanbul Convention. So my question to the Minister is, how can we find reflections of these discussions on inclusive policy and upholding and ratifying the Istanbul Convention in the upcoming Athens Declaration? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Petra. I now have Dame Cheryl. Dame Cheryl, you have the floor.
Minister, thank you very much for coming here this afternoon, or coming to us remotely this afternoon. And thank you for your chairmanship of the Council of Europe. I, as the chair of the political committee, also thank you for your kind remarks about our statement earlier in the month. I'm very sorry to see that COVID-19, you had your highest spike of daily cases in Greece yesterday, and I'm afraid that is being replicated all over Europe. And the history that you referred to, I think you will will feature in it as being having the chairmanship of the presidency of the Council of Europe, whilst we pioneered remote democracy. But my question is quite allied to Madame Schu's. We are seeing an unprecedented loss of confidence in politicians and institutions and the political process. I think particularly because we often hear the accusations of interference in the electoral process. As the outgoing president, what advice do you have for the Council of Europe? How can we make a difference and restore confidence in democracy? Is there any more we could be doing?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I now pass the floor again to the Minister. Miltiadis, you've got the floor.
Well, I'm very glad for all these three interventions, because actually they bring the discussion to the core of what the Council of Europe should be doing. And I hope in Norway that you have a nice time. It's very nice to see Ms. Schu again. The difficulty of this chairmanship was the fact that we have changed actually the course of our direction in a few weeks before we were taking over. We had already put together a plan, and it was focused on the new generation of the Europeans, the Generation E, and how to engage younger people into politics and how to promote the agenda about the youth adopted by the Council of Europe, the Agenda 2030. And in the course of our preparation, COVID erupted, quarantine has been imposed, human rights were limited, extreme limitation of our human rights, and we thought that it was the first time that we had to highlight the importance of human rights, democracy, and the rule of law in times of confinement. Since the global community took the decision to treasure human life more than the continuation of the economic activity, which was a unique decision taken by the global community, I think that it was important for the Council of Europe to make a breakthrough and stand up for the values that should be followed. Because definitely what we have seen is in several member states, but also in countries around the globe, that the prolongation of measures, the adoption and the way that this adoption of measures and the measures themselves, they weren't proportionate, and they're really directed in only combating the virus. For example, there is a country that actually changed most of the opposition mayors in the country during the COVID period by claiming that they weren't cooperative with the COVID directives. So this is the difficulty. And one of the major issues, as Mrs. Tinen has highlighted, is also the issue of equality. Yesterday in our webinar, we highlighted the importance of this inclusive approach, and especially the measures that should be taken for the consequences that people are facing because of the economic consequences of the COVID-19 crisis. Most of the people that they are going to be jobless after this crisis are going to be women. And this is something that the government should take into consideration in all the measures that they are going to take in the next few months. Increase the violence. In our country, the increase rate was more than 18% in the violence against women, in the domicile violence. And this is an alarming increase that should be highlighted in order to be responded in the proper way. And finally, I come to what I always feel, and I think that it is a nice approach by Ms. Gillian. The loss of confidence towards politicians. I'm living in a country that actually the confidence on the government has increased during COVID. And this has happened only for one reason. Because we took the experts, we took the recommendation of the experts very seriously from the beginning. When the experts said we have to be locked down, we were locked down. And when the experts advised us to wear masks everywhere, we put masks everywhere. We didn't try to make whatever we were thinking would be good for our audience. And it's very important to build up the trust between governments and citizens in times of crisis. What is happening, for example, in the United States, it's something that shouldn't move into Europe. The disregard of the experts and the epidemiological data. And it's something that shows that what actually we politicians should do in order for the younger generation, especially to believe in us, to believe in our decisions, is to build trust. And to build trust, there is only one way to build it, by being honest. Honest on the data you have, honest on the information you have, and to be very clear on the message you are sending. Complex messages, the implication of fake news, of social media, that actually do not have a truth barometer next to the ideas and the news circulated. And of course, sometimes also the foreign interventions or the interventions on behalf of big companies is something that should be among the issues that we, within the Council of Europe, and especially within the Parliamentary Assembly, we should examine. Next presidency, the German presidency, will focus a lot on this new media. And I think that your interventions in the Parliamentary Assembly should be definitely very helpful. If I may add, I would add one thing that I have already said, but we have also to make an effort in order for the countries that they have already announced that they are going to leave the Istanbul Convention, not to leave the Istanbul Convention. Violence against women, it's not fake news. It's a reality that thousands, millions of women are living with it in their own homes. And we should be standing next to them and not try to neglect this issue based on divisive lines that actually make the intervention within the family and the homes as an intervention which is not accepted. It is accepted when the basic human rights and of people are threatened. And this is a basic value that the Council is always focusing on. And I think the campaign within the PACE should alarm these societies that they should not be absent from these conventions.
Thank you, Miltiadis. I fully agree with your, not with only, but specifically with your last remarks. We can never underestimate the effect that this pandemic has had and is still having and will have more, given the fact it is amplifying with regard to violence against women. I mean, this is intolerable. We now go to our next colleagues intervening. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2 colleagues from Armenia and 3 from Azerbaijan, I think. It is obvious that within this discussion, the subject of Nagorno-Karabakh comes up. Seems to be logical. So each of you, you have 1 minute. I will take them all at once because otherwise we will redo it. And if you feel, colleagues, that your arguments have been voiced by one of your colleagues already, maybe you could refrain from intervening. In that way, we can respect our timing. So I will take all of the questions at once. I've got 2, 4, 6, 7 people now. And again, if you think your arguments have been voiced, please refrain from intervening so as to allow the minister to give his view, the view of the Committee of Ministers on this very painful conflict. I start with Mr. Igitian. I've got Mr. Jafarov. Igitian is gone again? No, he's down there. So, Johannes, you've got the floor. And then the next one is Jafarov.
Thank you, dear President. Hello, Mr. Minister, dear Mr. Varvitsiotis. I'm Hovannes Igitian, I'm from Armenia. First of all, I would like to wish peace and calmness to your country, your people, and to your region and our region as well. But my questions to you as to chairman of Committee of Ministers. So we have institutions, we have Council of Ministers, PACE, we have General Secretary, we have President of PACE, we have Human Rights Commissioner, Human Rights Court, and so on. What's your opinion? How we can unite and coordinate our efforts to make our resolutions more efficiency? And what your opinion? How we can bring discussion not only to the political point of view, but also to human rights field for democracy principles. So, and how to encourage our member state to respect and fulfill our recommendations and resolutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Johannes. May I ask the next intervenants to stick to the 1 minute, please? We now have Mr. Jafarov.
Can you hear me?
Mr. Jafarov, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Yes?
You have the floor.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chair. There is one issue I would like to bring to your attention, which concerns the regional security and the peace. On 8th October 2020, an aircraft Boeing 757 departed from Suleymaniye, North Iraq to Yerevan. This flight was operated by Greek airline Olympus Airways. I personally took this information from Flight Radar's 24com, which is an independent radar system well recognized in the world. I don't want to assert delegation, but it's also interesting for us who or what were being transferred from terrorist hotbed of the Middle East to Yerevan, where international armed conflict is in the highest level. I want to let you know that using civil aircraft for military purposes is a serious violation of Chicago Convention. And furthermore, exporting weapons by knowing that those weapons will be used for war crime is a serious breach of Arms Trade Treaty. I want you to know that not as a Greek minister, but as a chairman of committee, as a minister of Council of Europe to this matter, what action you take to. And my final remark to the Armenian colleagues, sorry, just a 10-second, please. In order to bring the effectiveness to the resolutions of Council of Europe and also United Security Council resolutions, the Armenia should implement them. Thank you.
Time. Okay, well, thank you. We will now, with all due respect, when I reach the 1 minute now, for everyone who intervenes, I will be forced to just cut the mic. I could have followed the rules and only give one colleague from Armenia and one colleague from Azerbaijan the floor. So now, at 1 minute, I really will cut it off, okay? So please refrain. Otherwise, I really want to be as open as possible for everyone to give his or her opinion, but 1 minute and that is it. So we now come to Mr. Vardanyan. 1 minute sharp.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kalimera, Mr. Minister. Just for your information, now the Azerbaijani flight flying from Baku to on undefined destination. It's just answering the previous question, and I would like Mr. Minister to react to this issue. But I have another very precise issue. A couple of weeks ago, European Court of Human Rights adopted interim measures on Azerbaijan, Armenia, and Turkey to stop the hostilities and not initiate further proliferation of the conflict. What kind of practical steps under your chairmanship, Mr. Minister, you will do to implement these particular decisions? I don't want to discuss UN. I don't want to discuss the Council of Europe as such. We have a particular decisions. We have an interstate complaint, and I would like to know your opinion on this issue. Evharisto. Please transfer my 9 seconds to our Azerbaijani colleagues.
No, that is something I won't do. I'm leading the meeting. So now we have Mr. Zadov.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. I will be very brief, and I think my Armenian colleague, still member of the delegation, not the chairman of the cabinet of the minister, and that's why cabinet of the minister should answer to the question. My question is very strict. We have at the Council of Europe document 1416, which exactly refer to the implementation of the international law requirements. But unfortunately, Armenia still resists to all international documents, including Council of Europe adopted documents. And this is really very important to do something in order to achieve the peace in our region. That's why I think very important to listen your opinion, how Council of Europe is thinking about the implementation of the internationally required documents which adopted within the Council of Europe, European Union, United Nations, and other international organizations. That would be very, very important for peaceful resolution of this conflict. Thank you very much, Mr. Minister.
Thank you. I now come to Madam Hayratpetian. You have the floor, Madam.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you for your very interesting speech and notices. I would like to tackle another issue about the destabilizing role of Turkey, also in South Caucasus region. We know that Turkey is playing a very destabilizing role in different regions of the world. And what do you think? What kind of common measures can be taken to stop this? Because it creates a real risk in different regions, and also now in South Caucasus, when Turkey has deployed terrorists to fight for Azerbaijan, it also creates a real risk of the turning region into a terroristic hub. So what do you think can be commonly done to stop Turkey from this destructive role? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We now have Mr. Molazara. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. My question, very short. It's related to using missiles against civil population, because it intentionally killing civil population by Scud type of missiles is a military crime. Are you ready, as a chairing person, minister in Council of Europe, try to protect children and women, civil population from Saddam Hussein type of strikes and attack against civil people?
Thank you very much. Then we go to Madam Arpadaray. Madam, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Just very quickly, I would like to support the discussions of permanent failure of international community to enforce international law in respect of this conflict, Nagorno-Karabakh, of course. I think that we should really think of some platform and some ways to make sure that if one of the member states does not respect international law, in this case, I'm speaking about Armenia, I would like to remind of UN Security Council resolutions, of the document that my colleague earlier mentioned, 1416. So how can we make sure that international law is respected? And when some of the member states does not respect it and does not, let's say, implement what is mentioned on all these documents, what can we all do to make sure that international law is again in the focus of all of us? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I now go to Madam Selic. May I remind that we are putting questions to the minister and not engaging into a debate. Madam Selic, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Minister, my questions concern the situation in the Aegean. Why does Greece continue to deploy military equipment and conduct military exercises in the eastern Aegean islands, even though these islands are demilitarized according to the 1923 Lausanne and 1947 Paris treaties? And on which legal basis does Greece claim 6 nautical miles territorial waters and 10 nautical miles airspace? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now go to Mr. Ozavli. You have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to remind the participants about the relationship between Armenia and the terrorist group PKK, YPG, and also the Asala. I'm sure that all the participants will remind Asala, who had between 1975 and 1980s had murdered almost 30 Turkish diplomats, like consulars and ambassadors. I would like to show you this photo. I am sure this guy is Monte Melkonian, murderer of Galip Özmen, the attaché of Turkey in Athens, and his 14 years old daughter in 1980s. And also, please let me show you these pictures.
5 seconds.
Seyran Ohanyan, the Ministry of Armenia, he visited the PKK terrorist home in 2015. So,
I do apologize, but I did warn each and every colleague that at 1 minute we were forced to cut off. As a matter of fact, our last intervention, which I have no problem with these issues, but you did not put a question. We now have as a last intervention, Mr. Guger from Schweiz. Mr. Guger.
Sorry, this was a misunderstanding.
Okay, no problem at all. So then we go to the minister on this very unfortunate and terrible conflict that we are living within the member states of the Council of Europe. Mr. Minister, Miltiadis, you have the floor.
Well, let me say a few words in the beginning for Nagorno-Karabakh. I have followed all this debate also within the framework of the Council of Europe. I have followed all the debates, the various debates that have been held the last few years. And actually, I have been in both countries. I have visited both countries in the past. First of all, I would like to say that the recent ceasefire is something that we should welcome. But definitely we have to express our concern and regret of the violation agreement, of the violation on the agreement of the ceasefire. Because I don't think that the continuation of the injuries and suffering caused by the ongoing fighting will bring any result. All parties should respect what it has been agreed in order to move forward also to the talks under the auspices of OSCE's Minsk group that has our full support. This goes also to other countries that would like to intervene one on the other way. And the countries that are trying to get involved in the issue by procuring arms or sending volunteers to the area. This is not a constructive way of dealing with this crisis. I also call that the interim measures that have been decided by the European Court of Human Rights should be implemented, and all parties should refrain from taking military actions which may entail breaches of the convention rights of the civilian population. The settlement of the conflict is not the Council of Europe's responsibility or part of its mandate. It may, however, and we may, however, help to establish conditions conducive to a peace agreement by encouraging confidence-building measures. And as regard to the commitments of the member states of the Council of Europe, I think that this is a part of our monitoring process. I recall the fact that Azerbaijan is monitored by the Committee of Ministers since its accession in 2001, and a report on the state of the implementation of commitments is currently examined by the Minister's deputies. I think that the monitoring process in order to find any shortfalls in our commitments is very important. And let me give an answer also to Mrs. Çelik about why Greece is making military exercises in all the islands of this Aegean. There is only one answer for that. It's what the Turkish parliament has voted for. And this is a casus belli. And if Ms. Çelik and other colleagues, Turkish colleagues, want from Greece not to move forward, they should abandon this vote that they have taken several years ago, and they have created this friction. And there is only one way for a peace settlement in the Aegean: the refrain of the violation of the sovereign rights of your neighbors. Greek airplanes are not overflying Turkey. Turkish airplanes are overflying Greek islands. Greek ships are not violating territorial waters or exclusive economic zone of Turkey. The opposite happens. So if we want to calm down, and if they seek to really move forward for a peaceful solution, then let's refrain from any unilateral military moves and come back to the table of discussion in order to delimitate our exclusive economic zones. Thank you, Mr. President, for the opportunity that you gave me to be with you today. It has been a heated discussion, as I predicted, and there was an increased interest for this intervention. I would like to thank all our colleagues for their comments, and I believe that through this discussion and through the dialogue that we can establish within the framework of PACE, shows that actually PACE is the heart of this organization. We may have the Secretary General and the European Court of Human Rights and the Commission for Human Rights to be the hands of application, but the heart of our organization is the political dialogue that happens between the parliamentarians that are not binded by the governmental capacity, and they can have a full expression of their thinking. Thank you, Rick, for hosting me for the fourth time, and I would be glad to see you again, not only in Athens, but also for the fifth time at the end of our chairmanship, if you want to have another discussion, another round of questions and answers with the members of the Standing Committee.
Thank you very much, Miltiadis, for your answers and your nice words. It is always good to hear a minister say that the heart of the organization is the parliament. It shows you that really in your heart you are a member of parliament, such as I am and all of us are. So thank you for that. I hope and I'm sure that we will meet soon, also physically, of course with some distance. But as I told before, be it by boat, by plane, by I don't know what, bicycle, we will try to make sure that we can indeed meet in a proper way. Thank you very, very much for this fourth time you were here. And I heard you well that might it be that even a fifth would be required, that you would stand ready for that. Thank you very much. And I really hope to see you very soon. Thank you for that.
Bye.
Dear colleagues, now we come to our joint debate of 4 reports on artificial intelligence, 2 from the Legal Committee and 2 from the Social Committee. The 2 reports from the Legal Committees are the report on the brain-computer interface, new rights or new threats to fundamental freedoms, which is the document 15147, which will be presented by Monsieur Olivier Becht, and the report on legal aspects of autonomous vehicles, which will be presented by Rapporteur Zia Altunialdis. The 2 other reports from the Social Affairs Committee are the report on artificial intelligence in healthcare, medical, legal, and ethical challenges ahead. This is the document 15154. It will be presented by Madam Selin Sayek-Böke. And then we have the report on artificial intelligence and labor markets, friend or foe, which will be presented by Mr. Stefan Schenach. As I told you before, these 7 reports are extremely important because they will be a feedback as to the substance into the German presidency, who has made artificial intelligence as one of their priorities. Alors, puis-je maintenant appeler Monsieur Becht pour présenter son rapport. Vous avez 10 minutes en total, Olivier. Vous pouvez le diviser en 2 parties afin de vous permettre de répondre à des remarques ou des questions que les collègues membres auraient à ce sujet. Olivier, vous avez la parole.
Bonjour Rick, bonjour à toutes et à tous. Juste pour m'assurer que vous m'entendez bien. Oui, parfait. Bien. Alors, je suis très heureux d'être avec vous cet après-midi. J'aurais évidemment préféré être physiquement présent et que l'on puisse tous se retrouver autour de la table du Conseil de l'Europe, surtout que je vous parle à quelques centaines de mètres du Palais de l'Europe. Le thème sur lequel je souhaiterais intervenir cet après-midi, le rapport que j'ai présenté, en fait, relève d'une motion que nous avions écrite début 2019 dans un domaine qui pose des défis à la fois passionnants, mais aussi des enjeux qui sont relativement graves pour l'humanité. En fait, pour comprendre ce dont on parle, il faut voir les progrès que nous avons réalisés à la fois dans l'intelligence artificielle, mais également dans ce qu'on appelle les nanotechnologies, c'est-à-dire la capacité à construire des processus extrêmement petits, invisibles quasiment à l'œil nu, et qui ont permis, avec la puissance de calcul des ordinateurs, eh bien, de décoder les signaux du cerveau, c'est-à-dire les processus électriques et parfois chimiques qui se déroulent dans nos têtes et qui, du coup, ont permis, à travers l'ordinateur, eh bien, de connecter le cerveau à la machine, de décoder ce qui se passait dans notre cerveau de mieux en mieux et quelque part également de faire en sorte que l'on puisse derrière téléguider des objets. Cette connexion entre le cerveau et la machine peut se faire avec des moyens dits non invasifs. C'est ce qu'on appelle l'électroencéphalogramme ou l'IRM, ou alors de manière invasive, c'est-à-dire à travers des micropuces, des implants neuronaux que l'on met à l'intérieur de la boîte crânienne et qui vont décoder donc ce qui se passe à l'intérieur du cerveau. Les progrès qui sont ouverts sont fulgurants. Nous avons, grâce à ça, pu rendre la mobilité à des paraplégiques, puisque le cerveau est connecté à l'ordinateur et l'ordinateur est connecté à un exosquelette, ce qui fait que des gens, par la pensée, peuvent manipuler des exosquelettes et donc peuvent retrouver la capacité de bouger alors qu'ils étaient entièrement paralysés. Ça permet également de rendre la vue à des aveugles en mettant des nanocaméras dans les yeux et en les connectant au cerveau. Les signaux qui sont connectés, enfin qui sont vus par les caméras, sont ensuite retransmis au cerveau et produisent des images que nous voyons, même si nous ne le voyons pas de manière naturelle. Ça permet également de rendre la parole à des muets ou encore de soigner des maladies comme Parkinson ou comme d'autres troubles neurologiques. Mais la capacité de lire dans le cerveau met aussi en danger le dernier refuge de la liberté qui était la pensée. On peut vous priver de votre capacité de bouger en vous emprisonnant, on peut même vous priver de votre capacité de parole en vous bâillonnant. La seule chose dont on ne pouvait pas vous priver jusqu'à présent, c'était de votre capacité de penser, même au plus profond d'un cachot. Alors que des programmes de recherche visent déjà à effacer des souvenirs, ce sont des programmes qui sont faits par les militaires américains, la DARPA, sous une forme médicale. C'était pour soigner des soldats traumatisés après la guerre du Golfe. Il est à craindre que demain, des personnes mal intentionnées tentent de prendre le contrôle de l'esprit à travers ces technologies, en passant ainsi de l'homme augmenté, que l'on connaît, notamment à travers un certain nombre de technologies, mais également à travers l'homme programmé, voire peut-être même l'homme piraté. J'ai visité avec la commission des firmes dans la Silicon Valley aux États-Unis qui sont les plus développés dans ce domaine. Et bien sûr, lorsqu'on discute avec les firmes de la tech, elles sont très loin de ces intentions d'hommes programmés ou d'hommes piratés. En revanche, même si elles sont toutes tournées vers des buts pacifiques et plutôt en santé, on voit bien les dangers qui peuvent exister. Je vous donne un exemple. Il y a un peu plus d'un mois, la firme Neuralink de Elon Musk a implanté une puce, un implant cérébral dans le cerveau des cochons et a montré comment est-ce qu'on pouvait en fait orienter le cochon à travers cette puce cérébrale. Mais quelques semaines plus tôt, la même firme de Elon Musk, non pas Neuralink, mais cette fois-ci Tesla, la firme automobile, elle s'était fait pirater son système informatique central qui donnait des instructions à tous les véhicules autonomes sur le monde entier. Et donc, on voit bien ce qui aurait pu se passer si ce système avait piraté non pas des automobiles, mais malheureusement des êtres humains. La connexion cerveau-machine, c'est donc un enjeu essentiel des droits de l'homme. Et ce dont on parle, ce n'est pas de la science-fiction. Ce sont pour beaucoup des technologies qui existent déjà et qui vont se développer encore davantage dans la décennie qui s'ouvre. Le principal enjeu est donc éthique. Il rejoint les enjeux éthiques de l'intelligence artificielle et c'est la raison pour laquelle j'ai joint au rapport une annexe avec des principes éthiques pour l'utilisation de l'intelligence artificielle. Toutefois, on ne pourra pas, dans ce domaine, se contenter de faire confiance aux développeurs pour qu'ils ne s'écartent pas de ces principes éthiques. Et c'est la raison pour laquelle je proposerai au Conseil de l'Europe de s'engager vers la reconnaissance de nouveaux droits qu'on peut considérer comme des neurodroits. Alors, j'en verrai quatre neurodroits qui me sembleraient utiles. Le premier, c'est la liberté cognitive. La liberté cognitive, c'est le droit de maîtriser sa propre conscience et ses processus dits neurochimiques, c'est-à-dire le droit de ne pas être altéré dans le process même de créer de la pensée. C'est une condition préalable à l'exercice de toutes les autres libertés, que ce soit la pensée, la croyance, la religion, la conscience, l'expression, dépendent de cette liberté cognitive. Le deuxième droit serait la vie privée mentale, qui là est la protection contre l'observation des processus mentaux sans consentement, c'est-à-dire le fait que l'on puisse demain, le cas échéant, rentrer dans votre cerveau et lire des choses sans votre consentement. Et ça inclut également la question de la propriété des données et de l'accès aux données qui pourraient être, même avec consentement, issus de votre cerveau. Et le troisième droit concernerait l'intégrité mentale. Alors l'intégrité mentale, c'est la protection contre les piratages du cerveau ou la prise de contrôle de ses actions. Ça paraît peu probable dans l'immédiat, mais ce n'est pas à exclure dans un futur qui peut être d'ailleurs relativement proche. Enfin, le dernier droit est la continuité psychologique, qui est le droit de rester soi-même dans le temps, avec une identité personnelle constante, qui évidemment est aussi une conséquence de nos processus neurochimiques qui se déroulent dans le cerveau. Je suis conscient, évidemment, qu'on entre dans ce rapport dans un champ assez nouveau, et peut-être même effrayant pour certains, la capacité à lire les pensées, la capacité à prendre le contrôle d'un cerveau humain. On voit bien les utilisations qu'on pourrait en faire sur le plan militaire, sur le plan religieux, sur le plan politique. Mais ces technologies, je vous assure, chers collègues, sont à la fois fascinantes par les progrès qu'ils peuvent apporter à la santé humaine. Il faut donc permettre
Olivier, tu te reconnectes?
Je suis là. Vous m'aviez perdu?
Ah, complètement, on a eu peur pour toi.
Ah, vous m'aviez perdu. Alors, vous m'aviez perdu à quel moment?
À 2 minutes 41 de la fin.
Sérieusement? Parce que là, j'ai peur.
1 minute 30 quand même, je pense.
Bon, alors, vous aviez eu l'ensemble des droits. J'avais terminé sur les 4 neurodroits que je souhaitais développer.
Tu semblais dire que c'était très effrayant.
Oui. Alors, je termine dans ces cas-là sur ma conclusion. Donc, proposition de 4 neurodroits qu'il conviendrait de reconnaître: la liberté cognitive, la vie privée mentale, l'intégrité mentale et la continuité psychologique. Et je terminais en vous disant que pour une fois, il faudrait que le droit puisse avoir une longueur d'avance sur la technologie. Alors, cette technologie avance très vite. Je pense, comme dans le domaine de l'intelligence artificielle, on ne renoncera pas à cette technologie. Prométhée a volé le feu aux dieux, on ne peut pas le rendre. Mais cette technologie, elle peut nous amener au meilleur comme au pire. Il s'agit, par le droit, de faire en sorte que ce soit surtout le meilleur et d'éviter le pire. Merci.
Merci, Monsieur Becht, pour votre intervention. Désolée pour cette interruption. On a récupéré la conclusion, merci. Le deuxième rapport, Intelligence artificielle et santé, défis médicaux, juridiques et éthiques à venir, est présenté par la rapporteure, Madame Sayek-Bouk. Madame Sayek-Bouk, si vous êtes connectée, je l'espère, vous disposez d'un temps de parole total de 10 minutes. Je vous donne la parole.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Clearly, it's health concerns that are keeping us apart today, and this report is one that would hopefully allow for technology to ensure that we're not kept apart when we have such pandemic. Clearly, we are going through a period where we're learning by experience that good health is extremely essential. And not only does it influence and enable us in terms of our individual life quality, but is also necessary for societal progress. And artificial intelligence has become an integral part of pretty much everything throughout our life, but it is very pervasive in healthcare. And it has very strong potential in terms of improving our individual as well as public health, but it also bears significant risks in terms of individual rights and in terms of public health. And indeed, the pace of technology development is so much faster than the pace of our legal and regulatory frameworks that the work that we've done here and will be discussing today is extremely critical in ensuring that the regulatory framework is out there to ensure that technology indeed benefits our societies and benefits the individual seeking human rights. Now, AI implications have indeed changed the paradigm in healthcare. It has moved the focus from disease and therapy to self-managed health, as well as well-being and prevention of illnesses. And it has created precision medicine, which is pretty much individualized and tailored medicine towards our individual needs. And we have been experiencing several algorithms through AI, which has created faster diagnosis. Indeed, there are certain narrow tasks that AI technologies matches human skills, and indeed at times outperforms it. For example, when it comes to medical imaging, we've experienced better diagnosis of certain illnesses through AI technologies. Some argue that AI machines outrank humans because they don't get tired, they don't have emotions, but this also bears a huge risk in that it opens the prospect that AI-powered machines could become increasingly autonomous. We've heard experiences so far and examples, and could escape human control, which is a huge risk when it comes to issues of health. So in this rapidly evolving environment, I think it's clear that as politicians, we have a huge duty to better understand the potential, but also understand and anticipate the wide-ranging risks that we might observe in terms of the socioeconomic impact such technologies could have, and also the opportunities that it bears, starting from its design, coming up to its end use, and not only its research development, but also its deployment. Now, clearly, upon a lot of extensive analysis and discussions, I am convinced that only mature AI mechanisms should be deployed when it comes to healthcare. Focusing on mature AI mechanisms is necessary to ensure safety foremost, because we require that human rights are well protected, human dignity is preserved, and the benefits from innovation are spread out fairly and equitably across the society. This can only happen if we focus on mature AI technologies and don't rush into it. And in these times where we have a lot of uncertainty and fear that's being triggered by the pandemic, I wish to stress the need to acknowledge the right to health as a fundamental human right, a right that has to be secured through such legal instruments and ensuring that everybody has universal access to publicly provided healthcare services. Therefore, any AI that's going to be deployed has to ensure that it abides by this general framework of public provision, as well as universal access, and in a general rights-based framework. Now, the extent of AI in terms of pandemic resolution, if you wish, is still not clear. But we know that AI is being used for real-time surveillance, for assessment and management, as well as disease control and data. But here we have to emphasize that when using technology, especially during the pandemic period, we should not lower the essential safeguards in healthcare, nor in relation to human rights and freedoms. WHO is warning us about extensive healthcare inequalities and the current digital divide, as well as AI technologies that are inherently biased at times because of the data and the algorithm that they include, might exacerbate these inequalities. So we have to ensure that the digital divide is overcome and that biases that could be inherent in AI technologies, in the data as well as the algorithm, indeed does not overtake the potential that it bears. So the outcome of AI, as I said, heavily depends on the quality of the data and the algorithm that is fed into the AI. And if there are built-in biases, unfortunately, this could reproduce the existing inequalities. So we need a certain mechanism to ensure that we do overcome these inherent biases within the design of AI. Now, to date, much of AI technology in healthcare industry has been driven by the private sector. And indeed, unfortunately, the public sector has been in the backseat. There seems to be an urgency in bringing forth a strong public sector involvement. And this is where our discussion and our guidance would be critical. There is need to resist the commercial capture of public health through AI. And exactly for this reason, we have to encourage national public healthcare authorities to adopt a strategic approach and ensure a healthy balance between individual, business, as well as public interests. And this is why we do call for the revision of the Committee of Ministers' recommendation on human rights and business and ensure that the public role is extended throughout AI technologies in healthcare. With regard to the need to better protect privacy and confidentiality of sensitive personal data and to prevent any misuse of such data by commercial entities or by states, it is our organization, the Council of Europe, who is well placed to optimize, indeed, a guidance to various stakeholders on good governance of health data, especially in an AI era that we've come into. We have to strengthen mechanisms of informed consent, of cyber safety of medical AI applications. We have to ensure that informed consent is not just about providing information. Indeed, it has to ensure that AI users are able to understand clearly the implications for their decisions when they click and consent, and should therefore be given concise information. And this is where a public certification mechanism that the authorities should put forth, which we call out for in the resolution, becomes very critical. It's still debatable on how personal health data should be coded and stored and shared. And this is where, again, the Council of Europe's Oviedo Convention, as well as our Convention 108+, plus the European Union's GDPR, is critical and should be further reconciled, taking into account AI technologies. The current opacity of algorithms, especially in healthcare, it requires that we deal with the liability of stakeholders, and we develop through regulatory authorities a clear definition of who is liable. We need international cooperation, and this is where the Council of Europe can chip in as a guardian of human rights and freedoms, including the defense of the right to health. And we include pretty much all of these in our draft resolution and recommendations. And we call for an inclusive and participatory policy making and extensive public debate in our national parliaments throughout our member states. We call for a holistic national approach of AI within this discussion. And more so, we plead for sovereign evaluation, screening, and certification of AI applications in healthcare services. And we do call for member states to elaborate a legal framework where stakeholder responsibility for risks and harms of AI are well defined. We stress the need, finally, to bridge the requirement of strong protection of personal data and the need to use the personal health data for public good in a human rights compliant fashion. And last but not least, we recommend the Council of Europe to launch the process of preparing a dedicated legal instrument on AI, preferably one that has a global outreach. Let's make sure that we benefit from technology, but do not forget human rights for the sake of a better future. Thank you very much.
Merci, Madame Sayegh, pour votre intervention. Je donne maintenant la parole à Monsieur Stéphane Chénard pour présenter le rapport de la Commission des questions sociales, de la santé et du développement durable sur intelligence artificielle et marché du travail, amis ou ennemis, point d'interrogation. Monsieur Chénard, vous disposez d'un temps de parole total de 10 minutes désormais.
Danke sehr, Frau Präsidentin. Thank you, Nicole. I followed the reports in the morning, and I was upset about the debate. So for this debate of the reports of this afternoon, this has nothing to do with drones or with rockets. It's the labor market, it's medicine sector. So I hope we get a good debate about that. Dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, artificial intelligence technology is a major innovation, and that will transform the way of our life and work. Meanwhile, artificial intelligence arrived a long time ago. Like a knife, it can be used for the good or evil. Comprehensive regulation will therefore be essential to make sure that artificial intelligence put at the service of human needs and well-being. And it's our role, dear colleagues, as lawmakers, to anticipate the sweeping changes ahead as artificial intelligence is taking more and more importance in different domains. It is also our duty to adjust and correct the existing laws, to monitor new developments and catch up by adoption new laws and regulations where necessary. We are a little bit late. We are not too late, but we are late, and we have, and it's time, and we see this the whole day, that the Council of Europe will be a new center of competence in regarding artificial intelligence. But in the case of labor market, we should never forget there is a triangle. And the triangle means there is on one hand robot techniques, on the other hand the digitalization, and on the third artificial intelligence. And all three together has a very strong impact of labor market, and the future for work. In the Social Committee Affairs, we discussed the potential impacts of artificial intelligence on human work earlier, considering the game-changing aspect of AI technologies may offer countless new opportunities and benefits for many, and for somebody makes work easier, but on the other hand, may also significantly disrupt and currently patterns of work and affect workers' rights. While working on the report Artificial Intelligence and Labor Markets, friend or foe, our committee held several discussions with experts, for example, also by our meeting in Vienna. And I, as a rapporteur, have drawn major insights from the work of my colleagues in this assembly of the several international organizations such as OECD, ILO, HWO, and also the studies of UNCTAD, European Commission, European Trade Union Institute, World Bank, and last but not least, the work of the Council of Europe Commissioner by Human Rights. My starting point of the work was looking into ethical aspects of artificial intelligence in general and relation to the human work especially. Clearly, AI technologies and practical applications are developing very, very fast. They no longer belong to a science fiction domain, and we are increasingly likely to encounter them in daily life, sometimes even without realizing it. Both commercial and the public entities already employ artificial intelligence to analyze, predict, reinforce, and even control human behavior via surveillance techniques. They can assist and facilitate our work and render it more efficient, but can also manipulate our decisions affecting us in the context of employment. The Council of Europe, as guardian of human rights, including fundamental social rights, could not and did not stay idly. I strongly appreciate the fact of IA-related developments were given adequate attentions and lead to creation of the ad hoc committee on artificial intelligence for the multi-sector, for multi-stakeholder consultants. I think we can now great confidence say that the time has come for the Council of Europe to launch the process for the preparation of a comprehensive standard setting instrument on artificial intelligence, such as convention open to non-member states that will build on our collective wisdom and vision for the future we want. At the beginning of our human life, we started as hunter. Later, we moved to collectors, farmers. And now we are all in the position of cattle producing, and in all the reports we heard, there was always the warning of be careful with the Tatars in general. I know that the European Commission, a high-level expert group on artificial intelligence, has called for human-centered development on AI, with the ultimate aim of increasing human well-being. It issues guidelines to trustworthy IA, stressing 7 major requirements that IA applications should be respect. 1 minute. Should be respect, and this is one is the human oversight, technical safety, personal data governance, transparency, diversity and non-discrimination. We heard it today also in the morning about that. Societal and environmental well-being and accountability. The OECD, I have been there with Madame Böcke, for adopted on 22nd of May 2019 the first intergovernmental policy guidelines on artificial intelligence in seeking to uphold international standards towards ensuring the design and operation of robust, safe, fair, and trustworthy IA systems, which could deliver the best outcomes for all. The OECD principles on IE echo the European Commission guidelines for trustworthy artificial intelligence. The ILO Commission on the Future of Work, we also visited ILO in Geneva, has proposed the human-centered strategy to cushion the impact of IA. It urges investment on people's skills, lifelong learning, acquiring skills, reskilling and upskilling, and institution for learning, as well as in decent and sustainable work. The later aspects imply additional efforts of ensure work with freedom, dignity, economic security and equality. Some states has already published for responsible artificial intelligence. They include France, Germany, Italy, New Zealand, and the United States. The Italian strategy for artificial intelligence is viewed as one of the most comprehensive ones. It takes a human-centric approach, considering that artificial intelligence should be designed as a service for humans, as a service for humans. should not seek to replace humans, be merely to enhance their capacity and lives. I appreciate this emphasis on the need for a strong government guidance and regulation of the labor market to preserve employment quality, to mainstream sustainability, and to prevent high levels of unemployment. It also bleeds for systemic changes in the education system so as to provide the robust lifelong learning paths for workers. My report then highlighted the growing job insecurity and the transforming of jobs with artificial intelligence, and not forget, in combination also with the triangle. For many of us, artificial intelligence crystallizes fears around the possibility of artificial intelligence to replace humans in more jobs than I could create new ones. And those uncertainty about how we are going to earn our living, and the world with super smart robots and black box applications everywhere. Various studies point
Merci.
Many studies show us I'm finished? Okay. So I come to the end. I hope you will support also my recommendation. The recommendation asks for a convention of Council of Europe in this field. Thank you very much.
Merci, Monsieur Chénard. Le dernier rapport de ce débat conjoint portera sur les aspects juridiques concernant les véhicules autonomes et sera présenté par le rapporteur, Monsieur Zia Altunialdis. C'est à vous. Ah, il ne va pas tarder alors. Monsieur Altunialdis.
Mr. Chair, Ms. Chair, I mean, do you hear me?
Très bien, merci. À vous.
Can I start now then?
On vous écoute, allez-y.
Okay. Dear colleagues, it is so likely to see such a solution billboard as there will be no more bad practice in the near future. The rise of vehicles.
Pardon.
Mr. Altunialdis?
Monsieur Altunialdis.
Could you please move your language selector on your screen, the bottom left to floor? Your language selector to floor, please. Thank you.
Okay, shall I start from the beginning then as well?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Dear President, dear colleagues, it is so likely to see such a slogan in the billboard as there will be no more bad drivers in the near future. The rise of autonomous vehicles surely promises revolutionary change in this respect. But the spectrum of their impacts each is much more than just avoiding bad drivers from the traffic. This intense and well-organized standing committee meeting has been adopting a series of text on issues relating on artificial intelligence, and we all listened very carefully and with our appreciation. We had always considered the artificial intelligence, as my colleague stated, as science fiction. However, I would like to underline that neither artificial intelligence nor reports about are science fiction. All of them involve real technologies that are already in use to some extent. But in one way, my report is different, I can say. Probably all of us already have experience of vehicles that are at least semi-autonomous. Maybe we were in the driving seat, maybe we were passengers, or maybe semi-autonomous car passed by and we didn't even realize that nobody was driving. For many years, we have been experiencing car with driver assistance, such as anti-lock brakes and cruise control. Autonomous vehicles industry has been having bigger spaces in our lives day by day, such that the autonomous vehicles industry, I would like to draw your attention to the fact that it is expected to be worth more than $600 billion over the next 5 years. Imagine, almost 22nd biggest economy in the world. Now we can easily see cars in the traffic that can clear lane and brake in emergencies. This goes beyond assistance. My dear friends, this is definitely automation. And I would like to draw your attention to this radical change. This automation doesn't add to the drivers, it replaces them. We can think that this automation doesn't seem like bringing big changes, but from a legal and ethical perspective. But I can assure you, my colleague, everything will change, and it will change dramatically and radically. We expect that fully autonomous vehicles will cause far fewer accidents. Artificial intelligence doesn't get distracted or fall asleep. It is never intoxicated, tired, or unwell. An autonomous car can see in the dark and react with greater speed and accuracy than any human beings. Sounds great so far, doesn't it? But inevitably and unfortunately, accidents will still happen. If we are going to face the fact that the accidents will still happen, let us try to find answers to the questions following. And who will be responsible if any accidents happens? And how can it be the driver if the regulations allow them to let go of by wheel? And how can it be the car if it is system were all working properly? How can it be the manufacturer if the car met all the necessary standards? Whose insurance should pay for any damages? And what if the action of autonomous vehicle violates not only the traffic code, but also the criminal code as well? Can anyone be punished under the criminal law? And I think, can you punish a machine? I don't want to make it this sort of questions long, but we all have to answer and find these questions for pertinent solutions, my dear friends. Like road traffic is already very highly regulated, as you all know, in many different ways. Technical specifications, safety and maintenance requirements, road traffic rules, driving tests, insurance requirements, and the list goes on. And I would like to underline a very important point. All of these regulations assume that a vehicle is under the control of a human being. However, this is not the case with both semi and full autonomous vehicles. These essential differences create gaps in responsibility and legal liability. Underlying these legal issues is an ethical problem. Driving involves unavoidable choices. Sometimes these choices are a matter of life and death. We expect human beings to respond to such situations with sensitivity and to be able to account for their decisions afterwards. If autonomous vehicle has to choose between hitting a child or leaving the road and hitting a tree, it will respond according to its programming. In effect, the choice will be made in advance according to general policy by the company that manufactured the system as a whole. The interests of the company may not be the same as those of the general population. Someone who buys an autonomous vehicle may expect their own safety to be the priority. The population as a whole may prefer the other way around, to prioritize the life of child over possible injury to an adult. These are extremely sensitive issues that are expected to be acted upon by a machine. Dear colleagues, in my view, there is a lot of legal work to be done before autonomous vehicles can drive on our roads, such as applying new technical standards for the sensors and control system, fixing the general rules for decision-making process, designing new civil and criminal laws on responsibility and liability, and new regulations on insurance. The Council of Europe is already working on autonomous vehicles as an example of how criminal law should be applied when artificial intelligence is involved. Another committee, the CAHI, is also working on the regulation of artificial intelligence in general, as you all know. In addition to all these precious studies, a number of renowned organizations are working to contribute on the integration of autonomous vehicles into our lives, like the UN Economic Commission for Europe, the EU, OECD, as well as national administrations. At this point, I would like to strongly explain and sharing the belief in myself that all regulations about autonomous vehicles should be undertaken with a common international understanding. And I recommend in my report that all this work should be coordinated, comprehensive, and inclusive for all sides of this issue, since the results are coherent and widely applicable as possible. And I would like to remind that the future regulation of autonomous vehicle has to be based on respect for human rights, beginning with the right to live. The interest of human beings, as determined by democratic process, must come before commercial interest or technical difficulties, as you comprehend it. I just try to summarize the focus of my report, my dear friends, and I hope that my conclusions are beneficial with your contribution to reach an ultimate effective result. Last but not least, I would like to thank the staff member of our committee for their valuable contribution, and I always welcome any questions and suggestions that will contribute to the success and the aim of this report. And I would like to thank you all for your kind interest and support to be provided. Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur Miltiadis. Le débat est maintenant ouvert. Qui souhaite prendre la parole? Je donne d'abord la parole aux représentants désignés par les groupes politiques. Il s'agira d'écouter tour à tour, je le dis pour les trois premiers, ce serait Madame Estrela, puis Monsieur Ramos, puis Madame Stinen. Donc d'abord, je donne la parole à Madame Estrela pour le groupe des socialistes. Vous avez 3 minutes.
Merci Madame la Présidente, chers collègues. Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Je remercie les rapporteurs pour la qualité de leur rapport. Les derniers développements technologiques, notamment ceux liés à l'automatisation, à l'intelligence artificielle et à la robotique, transforment les sociétés contemporaines. et il nous affecte dans presque tous les domaines, même à la vie familiale et sociale. L'intelligence artificielle présente de nombreux avantages. Elle permet notamment d'améliorer la transparence des gouvernements et la participation démocratique. Mais elle a aussi été utilisée pour la désinformation, la propagande et le discours de haine. Notre vie est actuellement influencée par des algorithmes. Nos choix, nos lectures, même nos idées. La neutralité des machines n'existe pas. C'est de plus en plus évident qu'elles sont générées dans des contextes sociaux de préjugés et de stéréotypes, notamment liés au genre. Les technologies numériques ont en effet représenté de nouveaux espaces de violence et d'oppression, principalement contre les femmes et les filles. Elles peuvent donc aggraver les inégalités, les exclusions déjà existantes. Il est nécessaire de s'assurer que les technologies fondées sur l'intelligence artificielle soient développées dans le respect des principes éthiques tels que la transparence, l'équité, la sécurité et le respect de la vie privée. Le monde du travail va être de plus en plus exposé aux impacts des technologies d'intelligence artificielle, avec le risque que les humains soient remplacés dans leur emploi par les robots, ce qui aura un impact spécial et encore plus grand sur les femmes. D'autre part, on constate qu'il y a une faiblesse d'effectifs féminins dans les filières scientifiques et techniques, ce qui a tendance à s'aggraver puisque la participation des femmes dans ce domaine a diminué en Europe. Notre Assemblée devrait recommander aux États membres de mettre en place une éducation aux technologies et aussi de développer des stratégies nationales pour une utilisation responsable de l'intelligence artificielle. Pour tout ce que les rapporteurs ont dit, il faut que le comité de ministres prépare un instrument juridique dans ce domaine, de préférence contraignant, pour garantir que l'intelligence artificielle respecte les principes des droits humains et qui défend les droits, les libertés et les garanties des citoyens et aussi des droits sociaux liés au travail et aux soins de santé. Merci beaucoup.
Nous n'avons plus de son.
De votre attention.
Merci, Madame. Est-ce que vous nous entendez? Vous nous... J'envoie quelqu'un d'autre. Oui, je sais. Bon, merci. On passe à Monsieur Ramos pour le groupe PPE.
Vous m'entendez, Nicole?
Très bien. Très bien.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. J'ai quelques problèmes de connexion, donc si vous me le permettez, je ne vais pas brancher ma caméra, comme ça je peux optimiser le son. Je voudrais commencer par féliciter la rapporteure et les rapporteurs pour cet excellent travail et grâce auquel nous pouvons mieux comprendre les enjeux d'aujourd'hui et de demain par rapport à l'intelligence artificielle. Ces 4 rapports soulèvent une question primordiale qui est l'impact de l'intelligence artificielle sur l'homme et nos valeurs fondamentales. Quelles sont les pratiques à encourager et quelles sont les lignes rouges à ne pas franchir pour défendre les droits fondamentaux de l'homme? C'est la question qu'on doit tous se poser. Il est notre devoir de faire face aux défis que le développement de la science ainsi que la technologie nous réserve. Force de constater que la législation est très en retard par rapport aux progrès technologiques. Il faut que l'Assemblée parlementaire, le Conseil de l'Europe puissent travailler ensemble dans ce domaine. Les travaux présentés par nos collègues rapporteurs évoquent des problématiques très complexes et nous demandent de réagir vite. Nous avons appris les éléments d'orientation importants pour la cartographie des risques et des opportunités de l'intelligence artificielle et de son impact sur les droits de l'homme, l'état de droit et la démocratie. Je tiens à souligner que c'est à nous de déterminer le cadre législatif et d'apporter des éléments clés à la nécessité d'un cadre juridique international contraignant. Intelligence artificielle, éthique, liberté, responsabilité, l'homme. Ce sont les mots-clés qui tracent les travaux présentés. En effet, la conception de l'homme-machine, ou plutôt l'idée de la dépendance de l'homme à la machine, fait froid au dos. L'idée d'avoir accès aux processus neuronaux qui sous-entend la pensée consciente, selon nous, cela risque une profonde violation de la vie privée et de la dignité humaine. En plus, ceci touche au dernier refuge de la liberté de l'homme, qui est la pensée. Cognitu ergo sum, je pense donc je suis. L'intervention dans la pensée de l'homme remet en question son existence. En conclusion, nous devons réfléchir comment peut-on rendre la législation plus performante pour répondre à ces enjeux au plus vite. Certes, cela pose des questions de nature juridique, responsabilité civile et pénale. Il est temps de renforcer le niveau de protection des libertés face à ces nouvelles technologies. D'après nous, les propositions des résolutions et des recommandations méritent d'être adoptées. Mesdames et messieurs, nous pouvons donc constater que l'homme reste au centre de ces projets. Et comme disait le généticien Albert Jacquard, on peut apprendre à un ordinateur à dire « je t'aime », mais on ne peut pas lui apprendre à l'aimer. Merci beaucoup pour votre attention.
Merci à vous. J'appelle maintenant Madame Petra Stinen pour le groupe ALDE.
Dear colleagues, on behalf of the ALDE group, I'd like to extend my compliments to all four rapporteurs. Yes, I'm on the floor. Artificial intelligence has major potential for the good of all in all areas of our lives, health, jobs, traffic. And I think this morning we also heard some very interesting reports, and this afternoon the reports give very, very much food for thought. Indeed, this potential will reach even beyond the areas we can imagine. But we are already seeing examples of how the use of algorithmic systems can jeopardize public values such as autonomy, privacy, and equal treatment. We know that our children and grandchildren will live in a world that might look like a science fiction movie to us now. We have the obligation to ensure that this future will not turn out to be a dystopian one, where only the happy few will be able to benefit from the positive aspects of artificial intelligence based on their gender, health markers, surname, race, sexual orientation, ethnicity, income, or postal code. Each report, each draft resolution and draft recommendation deserves a whole day discussion. In the time I have, I would like to ask each rapporteur one question. For my ALDE colleague, Olivier Becht, on brain-computer interfaces, I wonder how can ordinary citizens be included in the discussion about neurotechnology? And thank you, Ms. Burke, about your comment on AI and the COVID-19 pandemic. How do you see the appeal of techno-solutionism in the corona crisis, such as contact tracing apps? For Mr. Schenner, what do his findings entail for educational institutions and lifelong learning, and how can we be helpful as PACE in this trajectory? And last but not least, for Mr. Miltiadis, I really liked your report because I don't have a driver's license, so there was a sort of vested interest here in autonomous vehicles. But I'm wondering what is needed to unify legal frameworks in such a way that they can be used cross-border. The common thread in these four different reports is clear. How do we deal with artificial intelligence, algorithms, and robotics, while at the same time we aim to protect the human rights of our citizens and safeguard our democracies and the rule of law in 47 member states? This can only happen if we are capable of formulating the guiding principles for the application of 21st century technology and where necessary, legal frameworks. Therefore, the ALDE group supports the call in all of the 4 reports for the purpose of a binding legal instrument on AI, open to non-member states, with an emphasis on human rights, taking into account privacy, data rights, neuro rights, criminal and personal liability. Because in the end, we should make sure that it will always remain the citizens and not algorithms and artificial intelligence that make choices about how people are treated by their governments and private companies. It is up to us, parliamentarians, to ensure that technological developments serve society and not the other way around. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Merci à vous et j'appelle au nom des orateurs pour les groupes Monsieur Tini Cox pour la GUE. C'est à vous.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I now have put on the floor, sorry for that. This afternoon, the chair of the Committee of Ministers told us that although all organs of the Council of Europe are important, this Parliamentary Assembly is indeed the engine of the whole organization. And I think that with this afternoon's contribution of 4 new additional reports on artificial intelligence and 4 recommendations to the Committee of Ministers, that conclusion is proven. I already said it this morning, by focusing on the need to have new instruments, new conventions, new challenges in society, the Assembly shows that it understands what is our core business. We talk a lot, but in the end we have to take care that we deliver some real things. And all reports ask for a new instrument, legal binding instrument. Could it be a convention to deal with the positive but also the negative sides of artificial intelligence? I read all reports with interest, but especially the reports of Madam Beuke and Mr. Shenag on artificial intelligence in healthcare and artificial intelligence and the labor market. And there I'm very grateful that both rapporteurs do not only tell us what are the possibilities, but also warn that we have to take care that we guarantee that artificial intelligence is not used against patients, is not used against the working class. I would like to ask to all 4 rapporteurs, assuming that their reports, their resolutions or recommendations will be adopted as we did with this morning's report, how are they intend to give follow-up to the decisions that we take today? Because it was already said several times also this morning, this is the beginning of a process. It can only end when we indeed help the Committee of Ministers to draft a new legal binding instrument, preferably a new convention on artificial intelligence. So to the 4 rapporteurs, the question, how are you going to take care that you will assure that there is a follow-up and that we will continue our input to the Committee of Ministers so that in the end, the Council of Europe can add a new, very important convention to our acquis. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Merci à vous. J'ai encore 2 orateurs désormais, donc si certains veulent encore s'inscrire, c'est le moment. Je donne la parole à Monsieur Pojček pour la Pologne.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is something very important, our debate today concerning the artificial intelligence, because COVID pandemic cannot stop us. This is something that we can learn, and it's great. This topic poses the philosophical and ethical problems. One of the best Polish writers Mr. Stanisław Lem, already something like 50 years ago, he was writing about all those problems, and he put it, for example, a question: what will happen to us for our future, our humanity, if the science will give us the possibility to register our total brain, our feelings, possibility of thinking, learning, to a kind of tape. Will this give us something good, immortality, or something evil, a problem that we cannot die? Speaking about what we just heard from the rapporteurs, I would like to bring the attention to the legal aspect of autonomous vehicles brought to us by Mr. Miltiadis. 30 years of development of cars after the innovation. During 30 years, more people used to die because of the accidents made by cars pulled by horses than because of the cars that we know today. I strongly believe that the artificial intelligence here will bring us more success than problems. I don't know who said this, but I must share with you one thought. I fear much more natural stupidity than artificial intelligence. Thank you so much.
Merci à vous. Dernier orateur, Monsieur Aydin de Turquie. C'est à vous.
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker. Can you hear me?
Yes, très bien.
President, yeah. Thank you. Thank you. At the beginning, I would like to thank all the rapporteurs as they successfully managed to draw our attention to a very interesting and beneficial topics. But I would like to make a very brief comment, and if I may, I would like to wonder their, reaction to my worries or questions, whatever they would like to take it as. Dear colleagues and the rapporteurs, we all know that, from the 19th century onwards, we witnessed that there has been an ongoing developments in terms of industry and technology, labeled under different, names and numerics, anyway. But on the other hand, we are very well aware of the fact that these developments not only, let's say, we cannot say that they can only be used for the good of people and humanity, but on the other hand, we, from the devastating tragedies, we witnessed throughout the history, that they can also be used against the will of people or against peace and stability. Therefore, with reference to such sophisticated and risky characteristics and level of technology, we keep mentioning about, in a sense, we keep mentioning about the clash between utopia and dystopia, fighting against each other. And of course, as a result of this fighting, we human beings are paying the worst price. And bearing in mind that these concrete results of highly developed technologies under the name of, let's say, artificial intelligence, robotics, autonomous vehicles, so on and so forth. Yes, we are very stuck with the good of these technological developments. But on the other hand, we should be very careful about on the other hand, dystopic results of these technological developments. In your report, I really wonder whether you would like to spare a very crucial part for the risks, for the problematic areas, for, let's say, trying to get rid of the bad results of the use of these innovations. Thank you.
Merci à vous. La liste des orateurs est désormais close. Je propose de donner la parole au rapporteur avant d'inviter M. Silevich et M. Laïti Ramos à se prononcer au nom de leurs commissions respectives. J'appelle d'abord M. Becht pour la réplique aux interventions.
Allô, oui? Est-ce que vous m'entendez?
Oui, oui, absolument, malgré le masque.
Voilà, très bien. Je suis désolé. Maintenant, je suis... Alors, attendez, je vais déjà mettre sur orateur. Ça devrait être mieux. Comme ça, on n'a pas l'écho. Et ça facilitera pour les traducteurs. Moi, je voulais répondre très rapidement aux deux questions qui m'ont été posées. La première par Petra, en ce qui concerne l'implication des citoyens. En ce qui concerne les citoyens, je dirais qu'il va y avoir une tendance, hélas, naturelle à utiliser les neurotechnologies parce que les neurotechnologies vont d'abord être présentées sous la forme de progrès pour la santé, je l'ai dit, mais également sous forme de progrès pour simplifier la vie des gens. Je donne un exemple très simple. Facebook est en train de travailler sur une application qui permettra de transmettre directement du cerveau, donc de la pensée, des informations sur le réseau. Vous ne serez plus obligé de taper votre texte sur Facebook, il suffira de le penser et il s'écrira automatiquement. Voilà une application et quand on regarde en fait le mouvement de l'humanité, on se rend compte que tout ce qui simplifie la vie, on l'adopte généralement assez facilement, comme par exemple l'écran tactile du smartphone, qui est bien plus pratique que de taper sur les vieilles touches de nos claviers. Donc malheureusement, il va y avoir une adoption par nos concitoyens de ces neurotechnologies et il faudra évidemment les protéger contre eux-mêmes pour les dérives qui pourraient en être faites. On le voit bien aujourd'hui avec l'utilisation de toutes nos données que l'on met déjà naturellement sur l'Internet. À la deuxième question, le suivi. En ce qui concerne le suivi pour le comité des ministres, eh bien, il nous appartiendra à nous, Assemblée parlementaire, eh bien, de prendre les mesures pour faire en sorte que les recommandations que nous donnons au comité des ministres soient bien exécutées, soient bien suivies par les États. Je pense que c'est notre responsabilité, à la fois en tant que parlementaire à l'Assemblée parlementaire du Conseil de l'Europe, mais également dans nos propres États, de faire en sorte qu'il y ait demain des conventions. Je pense pour les neurotechnologies également à un protocole additionnel à la Convention européenne des droits de l'homme. Voilà, donc nous avons un gros travail juridique à réaliser, mais ce travail juridique passe d'abord par une pression politique sur nos propres exécutifs pour que demain nous ayons les instruments juridiques qui permettent de protéger nos concitoyens contre les aspects négatifs de ces progrès technologiques. Voilà. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Merci, Monsieur Becht, et bonne route. Visiblement, vous êtes
Merci.
déplacé.
C'est ça.
J'appelle maintenant Madame Beuck pour la réplique aux interventions. À vous.
I'd like to thank everyone for their very kind words, and that I actually share those kind words with our secretariat, who has put an immense effort in doing the work, and especially Aiste Romanaskaite. Now, the question that Petra put forth is actually very critical, in that we're going through a pandemic that has raised eyes into techno solutions, as she has put forth. And we have experienced across all of our member states and globally a contact tracing frenzy, if you wish. And exactly because of the nature of the contact tracing programs and technologies, we need to speed up the regulatory frameworks that we are currently discussing. Because I think COVID reminded us of two things. One, the need for a strong role of public in providing access to healthcare services, and also it reminded us of the need for a rights-based framework. And contact tracing, therefore, should not deepen the two aspects that have surfaced in terms of the crisis, but should indeed become an instrument in resolving these issues. And this is why we need to ensure that contact tracing doesn't become a surveillance instrument, but becomes one where we are able to empower the citizens in ensuring that they can access health, that they can remain healthy, and that the society progresses healthily together. So I think this is why we need the regulatory frameworks. As terms of Mr. Cox's response and question, clearly we have to ensure that we follow up on these very critical recommendations and resolutions that we've been debating throughout the day. And I have to reiterate what Mr. Becht said, actually. We have to first and foremost ensure that each and every one of us in our own national parliaments take on the role of raising our voice to ensure that there is a discussion, a consultative process, an inclusive process where national parliaments lead the discussion, and we continue the communication between the Parliamentary Assembly and the Committee of Ministers to ensure that we have a forceful lobby throughout our national parliaments, and we come up with a strong and good regulatory framework to ensure that human rights are protected, but we also benefit from technology. And finally, Mr. Aydin rightfully said, there could be a huge pessimism out of the discussion of AI, but also maybe very extensive optimism. We have to balance the two. To balance the two, we need a strong regulatory framework and an instrument that would actually guide us throughout these difficult times. And I think that's the effort that's being put forth here. Thank you very much.
Merci, Madame Böck. J'appelle maintenant Monsieur Chénard pour la réplique aux interventions.
Very much, Madam President. First, thank to all who participated and not misused this debate and be focused on our reports. I also congratulate all the other rapporteurs for their reports. I was deeply impressed. And I want also to thank the Secretariat, which helped us enormous. And especially Aiste Romanaskaite, I want extra name. Now, Madame Stienen asked me about education. Education and lifelong learning is important, but the IE competence we need to set up, and we have to do it very early in our education system. Also, the knowledge regarding hardware, software, what is dangerous, that they should know. And I'm completely in the line with Olivier Becht. In the national parliaments, we have also to set up especially laws. For example, when a supermarket has 1,000 square meters, how many humans should be there employed, that we can make on a lower level. Regarding Dini Cox, when I took part by the OECD conference, the Swedish delegate said we are not so pessimistic committee when I spoke, but I'm really afraid about the labor market in the way, also in connection now with the pandemic crisis. But Dini, for the report about media freedom and the situation of journalists, we asked the Council of Ministers to follow up, and they made a follow-up 1 month ago. I was invited to speak about that because as General Rapporteur for Media Freedom, and they really participated in the thematic, and I think we should also do that in the artificial intelligence case, that we follow closely with the Council of Ministers. And what we really need is this convention, and it must be an open convention to invite also other states to ratify this convention. In this way, I'm optimistic, Dini.
Merci, Monsieur Chénard. J'appelle maintenant Monsieur Miltiadis pour la réplique aux interventions. Ah, il faut demander la parole, c'est ça? Monsieur Miltiadis, il faudrait que vous demandiez la parole pour pouvoir avoir la parole. Vous pouvez demander la parole, vous appuyez sur le petit bouton en bas, Request to speak.
Now here you go. Thank you again. I would like to thank all the staff members of Secretariat and the chairperson and all of the staff that has been trying to provide the facilities for our report to be successful. And I also thank the reporters of our report, and I myself benefited a lot. And let me just explain or state that the Council of Europe is now discussing about the future of the world and how we can develop a sustainable, livable, and adjust the world for all the societies to live in. And that's why I think the discussion of this session has been so valuable and so memorable, I think. Let me just congratulate also Ms. Stenen for her question. I think with her vision, she didn't take any hassle trying to take a driver license since she knew that driverless car is coming into reality in the near future. And I think she is so right, not undertaking any hassle. And as I explained in my speech, I think like the pandemic shows us, there is no single solution and developing one by one country. There has to be a common solution to serve to all of us. I think cross-border driving is now regulated commonly with international bodies to guide national parliament to legislate in accordance with. That's why I think, in my view, cross-border driving is going to be much easier and there's going to be not much obstacles like we have been experiencing today. And the second question, Mr. Posia, he's right what he said. I think the credible reports have been explained and exclaimed that 80% of accidents happen because of the driver's fault. I think when the driver's car comes into reality, and the more driver's car into reality, and I think the less accidents we will experience, and maybe the traffic is going to less speedy, but I think it's going to be more standard and more safer and more reliable. That's why I think in the near future maybe things will get easier in the traffic as well. Of course, with the help of AI and other instruments. And I thank you again, and I wish you all the best.
Merci, Monsieur Al-Khalidi. Est-ce que le président de la Commission des questions juridiques et des droits de l'homme souhaite intervenir? Je pense que oui. Monsieur Silevich, dans ce cas-là, vous avez 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam President. First of all, I would like to commend our excellent rapporteurs of the committee. Indeed, when I first was listening to Monsieur Becht's introductory memorandum, I recalled one's famous movie about Robocop. But this is not a sci-fi any longer, as many speakers today mentioned. Indeed, I know personally some people who do not need credit card to make payments because necessary chips are actually within their bodies. And this approach opens completely new possibilities to help disabled people and to substantially improve and enhance capabilities of human bodies. As to Mr. Altunialdiz's report, these autonomous vehicles are already in reality. We can see them on the streets of many towns in Europe and outside. And indeed, legal regulation of these issues is vitally important because it seems that exactly a legal aspect is the main hurdle to more active use of autonomous vehicles rather than technical issues, which are successfully resolved by a number of companies. And of course, it is important to ensure credibility of the society, because indeed, we are all interested that achievements of technical progress are accepted by the society, because otherwise they cannot be effective. And to achieve these goals, indeed, proper legal framework is really indispensable. So once again, I would like to thank Mr. Becht and Mr. Altunialdis. It is really a pleasure to work with you. I'm looking forward to further work in this area by our Assembly and by its Committee on Legal Affairs and Human Rights. Thank you, Madam President.
Merci, Monsieur Silevich. Je donne la parole désormais au président de la Commission des questions sociales, de la santé et du développement durable, Monsieur Laïté Ramos. Vous souhaitez intervenir? Vous avez 3 minutes.
Entendez?
Très bien.
Oui, ce n'est pas très commun, mais je dois intervenir à nouveau, maintenant comme président de la Commission des questions sociales, de la santé et du développement durable, et pour soutenir très chaleureusement les rapports de Madame Bock et de Stefan Schenak. L'intelligence artificielle est en train de pénétrer nos vies. Elle est déployée majoritairement par le secteur privé, souvent sans que nous, en tant que consommateurs, nous rendions compte que nous sommes déjà en contact avec les applications. Les géants d'Internet, par exemple, utilisent des applications d'intelligence artificielle pour faire de profiling des utilisateurs, filtrer des informations qui s'affichent sur nos écrans et imposer des publicités lorsque nous faisons nos recherches sur un moteur de recherche. C'est une technologie censée décrypter nos envies, nos intentions, nos problèmes et nous proposer des solutions. Toutefois, la logique algorithmique n'est pas linéaire. Elle a un réel pouvoir d'influence sur notre comportement, parfois même de manipulation de nos décisions pour servir des intérêts commerciaux ou de nous induire en erreur, ou même de nous assujettir à des actions dangereuses. Les risques, les dangers et les pièges pour les êtres humains sont très sérieux si l'intelligence artificielle est utilisée de mauvaise manière. Or, nous savons aujourd'hui que la plupart des applications de l'IA ne sont ni assez fiables ni assez matures. Nous faisons face à un large vide juridique en l'absence de cadre d'utilisation de l'IA dans divers domaines, dans le respect des droits humains et des normes éthiques. Je suis tout particulièrement inquiet lorsqu'il s'agit de l'utilisation de l'IA par les employeurs au mépris des droits sociaux des travailleurs, notamment leur sécurité sur le lieu de travail, le respect des données personnelles et de la vie privée, ainsi que le droit de gagner sa vie dignement. Je suis aussi inquiet qu'une mauvaise utilisation de l'IA dans le domaine de la santé puisse empêcher l'accès effectif de certains groupes de la population aux soins de santé si essentiels pour vivre bien sa vie et pouvoir jouir de tous les autres droits fondamentaux. C'est pour cette raison que je soutiens fortement les propositions de nos rapporteurs, d'ailleurs comme toute la Commission, qui appellent nos pays à réfléchir ensemble et au niveau national sur les réglementations nécessaires. Je soutiens pleinement leur appel conjoint à ce que le Conseil de l'Europe lance les travaux pour la préparation d'un instrument juridique contraignant et l'apporter la plus large possible afin de mieux protéger nos droits les plus fondamentaux dans la nouvelle ère numérique algorithmique qui s'ouvre devant nous. Je vous remercie pour votre attention.
Merci à vous. Le débat est désormais clos. Nous allons passer au vote. D'abord sur le projet de résolution, puis sur le projet de recommandation. La Commission des questions juridiques et des droits de l'homme présente un projet de résolution « Les interfaces cerveau-machine, nouveaux droits ou nouveaux dangers pour les libertés fondamentales » qui ne fait l'objet d'aucun amendement. Nous allons procéder au vote. Pour être adopté, une majorité simple est requise. Le vote est ouvert. C'est bon? Donc, le vote est toujours ouvert, je vous le signale. Donc, je déclare le vote clos et je demande l'affichage des résultats. OK. 30 qui ont voté pour, en effet, 33.
Madame la Présidente, il y a 30 membres qui votaient pour. Parmi les votants, il y a 3 membres qui n'ont pas droit de vote. C'est à cause de ça, leurs votes sont déduits. Alors 30 pour, pas d'abstention et pas de vote contre.
D'accord. Donc, dans ce cas, le projet de résolution figurant dans le document 1547 est adopté. Nous passons au vote sur le projet de recommandation qui ne fait l'objet d'aucun amendement. Pour être adopté, une majorité des 2/3 est nécessaire et je déclare le vote ouvert.
C'est bon. Il y a 28 qui sont pour.
Le vote est clos. Je demande l'affichage des résultats et on me souffle à côté qu'il y a 28 pour. Dans ce cas, il n'y a aucune abstention, aucun contre. Le projet de recommandation figurant dans ce même document est désormais adopté. Nous passons au vote sur le projet de recommandation Intelligence artificielle et santé, défis médicaux, juridiques et éthiques à venir, présenté par la Commission des questions sociales, de la santé et du développement durable. Le projet de recommandation ne fait l'objet d'aucun amendement et pour être adopté, une majorité des 2/3 est nécessaire. Le vote est désormais ouvert. Le vote est clos et je demande l'affichage des résultats.
Madame la Présidente, il y a 30 membres qui votaient pour, pas de vote contre, une abstention.
OK. Donc, 30 membres pour. Dans ce cas, le projet de recommandation figurant dans le document 1554 est adopté. On passe à la Commission des questions sociales, de la santé et du développement durable qui a présenté un projet de résolution Intelligence artificielle et marché du travail, amis ou ennemis. Donc, c'est un vote sur ce projet de résolution figurant dans le document 1559 qui ne fait l'objet d'aucun amendement. Nous allons maintenant procéder au vote de ce projet de résolution qui, pour être adopté, a besoin d'une majorité simple et requise. Simple, donc. Le vote est ouvert. Le vote est clos et je demande les résultats, l'affichage. Est-ce qu'ils ont tous le droit de voter ce coup-ci? Il y a 34 votants.
Mais il y a 31 qu'il faut compter.
C'est pas grave, c'est quand même adopté. Donc, avec 31 votants, le projet de résolution figurant dans le document 1559 est adopté. Nous passons au projet de recommandation, donc un vote à ce propos-là, qui ne fait l'objet d'aucun amendement. Pour être adopté, il faut une majorité des 2/3 pour le projet de recommandation. Le vote est ouvert. Le vote est clos. Quel est l'affichage? 30 membres ont répondu pour ce projet de recommandation qui est adopté. La Commission des questions juridiques et des droits de l'homme présente un projet de résolution aspect juridique concernant les véhicules autonomes, figurant dans le document 1543, qui ne fait l'objet d'aucun amendement. Nous allons maintenant procéder au vote de ce projet de résolution qui, pour cela, a besoin d'une majorité simple. Le vote est ouvert. Le vote est clos. Quel est... Très bien. Donc, il y a 33 pour, pas d'abstention. Le projet de résolution figurant dans le document 1543 est donc adopté. Enfin, dernier vote sur le projet de recommandation qui ne fait l'objet d'aucun amendement et pour lequel il faut une majorité des 2/3. Le vote est ouvert. Le vote est clos et on me dit très bien, 32 votants pour, pas d'abstention. Le projet de recommandation figurant dans le document 1543 est donc adopté. La réunion est suspendue et reprendra demain à 9h30. Je vous souhaite à toutes et à tous une très bonne soirée.